Hi, this is Jono Polanski at Smoke Free Movies, University of California, San Francisco. Welcome to this presentation on Oscars and Tobacco 2017. We'll be taking a quick tour of the Academy Awards this year, looking at them through the lens of tobacco and public health. Thanks for joining us. In this presentation, we'll look at three aspects of Oscars and tobacco. First, the smoking in 2017 Oscar-listed films. Second, we'll compare the 2017 Oscar-listed films with other recent Oscar years. And finally, we'll look at the smoking in Oscar-listed films compared to the smoking in the general run of top-grossing films in 2016. First of all, let's be clear about the sample of films we're looking at. We considered all full-length live-action films nominated in the major Oscar categories: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor and Actress, Best Supporting Actor and Actress, Best Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Screenplay, Original and Adapted, and Best Production Design, the categories that bear on whether smoking is seen on screen or not. The film sample does not include animated movies or foreign language movies unless they were nominated in one of the major Oscar categories. In all, 21 films had nominations in a major category in 2017. There were 10 PG-13 films shown here: Arrival, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Fences, Florence Foster Jenkins, Hail Caesar, Hidden Figures, La La Land, Lion, Loving, and Passengers. The info pack includes a table with a complete breakdown of these films. We'll tell you where to get that at the end of the show. There were also 11 R-rated films: 20th Century Women, Captain Fantastic, Elle, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, Jackie, Manchester by the Sea, Moonlight, Nocturnal Animals, Silence, and The Lobster. You may not be familiar with all these movies, but that's the point of the Oscars. They give studios a second chance to promote a movie and juice its ticket sales and its value in the cable, streaming, and TV marketplace. That's why studios launch intense marketing campaigns to win nominations for their films. So let's look at the smoking in these movies. Of the 10 PG-13 films, 70% featured smoking. Here, outlined in a green glow: Fantastic Beasts, Fences, Florence Foster Jenkins, Hail Caesar, La La Land, Lion, and Loving. 3 of the films were 100% smoke-free: Arrival, Hidden Figures, and Passengers. Coincidentally or not, these 3 smoke-free films have to do with science or science fiction. Fantastic Beasts is a fantasy. La La Land is a romantic fantasy. Fences is a drama in which only extras smoke. Hail Caesar is a comedy in which lots of big-name actors smoke. Florence Foster Jenkins' Lion and Loving are stories based on real people, but real people don't do all the smoking in them. Of the 11 R-rated films, 73% featured smoking. 3 R-rated films did not feature smoking: Manchester by the Sea, Silence, and The Lobster. 2 of the smoking films are based on real stories: Jackie and Hacksaw Ridge. The lead actress who plays Jacqueline Kennedy smokes in Jackie, but fictional characters also smoke. In Hacksaw Ridge, the smokers are all fictional characters. Let's take a close-up look at a few of these films. Hail Caesar. It's a Coen Brothers film, one of their few PG-13 films, one of their many smoking films. It has more than 200 tobacco incidents. Here you see 6 of them: extras smoking, credited actors smoking, leads James Brolin and Scarlett Johansson smoking. And look quick and you'll see a real tobacco brand up in the upper right on the restaurant table: Viceroy's, a British-American tobacco brand sold now outside the U.S., where smoking is growing the fastest and where Hollywood now makes more than half of its money. At the other end of the spectrum, we have La La Land, rated PG-13. It's from a team of producers that has 10 other smoking movies on its track record. The movie has fewer than 10 tobacco incidents, namely a photograph of a man smoking and an unidentified extra smoking, which makes you ask, why is there any smoking in this romance movie at all? What possible reason? Who cared enough to put it in there? On the other side, we have Manchester by the Sea. It's R-rated, working-class guy, drama, depression, no smoking at all by anybody in this movie. Reportedly, Michelle Williams refused to smoke when she played Marilyn Monroe in My Week with Marilyn a few years back. The producers of Manchester by the Sea are unique among Oscar-nominated producers in 2017 because they have never made a top-grossing movie with smoking, none of them. No film is directly comparable with another film, but for a brooding Boston quality, compare Manchester by the Sea with 2003's Mystic River. In that movie, Tim Robbins, Kevin Bacon, Laura Linney, and others smoked. It was directed by Clint Eastwood. Tim Robbins smoked Marlboro brand. More than 50 tobacco incidents in Mystic River. In Manchester by the Sea, in contrast, unremarked by any film critic, no smoking at all. These are deliberate choices. Someone makes these choices on every film production. Also on the bright side, we have Hidden Figures, rated PG-13. Film is based on actual characters, surrounded by made-up characters and extras. Nobody smokes. It's 1962, before the Surgeon General report concluding that smoking causes lung cancer. The production team was concerned enough about accuracy to get a photo of the NASA parking lot from that time to see what cars people drove. Online, we could only find one blogger who called out the lack of smoking as political correctness, quote-unquote. The same blogger said the actor who played John Glenn should have cut his hair shorter. Compare Hidden Figures to the PG-13 movie The Help, released just 5 years ago. The Help was set in Mississippi around the same time as Hidden Figures. It included 11 smokers, all but one white, and more than 100 tobacco incidents. Now let's turn from the anecdotal to the analytical. This table of actors nominated for Oscars in 2017 shows that only 20% smoked in their roles, even though 86% of the films with nominated actors had smoking. Out of the 20 actors and actresses nominated for Best and Best Supporting Oscars, only 4 smoked in their movie roles, highlighted here. About 2/3 of these nominated actors have smoked in other top-grossing movies in the past, but they didn't smoke in the roles that got them nominated for Oscars this year, at the top of their game. If the stars aren't doing most of the smoking, how important is the smoking to any of these movies? If about 80% of the smoking is being done by actors with less leverage, or by uncredited, unnamed extras who have zero leverage on the set, why are those actors being exploited in that way? In the last 3 years, only 20 to 35% of nominated actors smoked, leaving it to other actors in the movie. This may represent a cultural shift, an aversion to controversy, or it may show that when actors do have a choice, they don't smoke on screen. But so few actors have a choice. 71% of all the movies in our sample had smoking in them. Let's keep going and compare 2017 to other Oscar years. To make comparison easier, we'll keep the 2017 percentages on screen to the left. 2 basic facts. Since 2010, 74% of films with nominations in major Oscar categories have featured smoking, 68% of PG-13 films, and 80% of R-rated films. So 2017 is right in there, not so different from the average Oscar year since 2010. But there are differences in Oscar years. For example, 2012 was the recent peak year. 91% of Oscar-nominated films had smoking. In fact, that year, 100% of the R-rated movies had smoking, and 85% of PG-13 films had smoking. Again, we have data tables in the info pack, so you can see these numbers for yourself. Let's look closer at PG-13 films, the kind that kids see most. On the Oscars list since 2010, we see twice as many PG-13 films with smoking as smoke-free PG-13 movies. 40 PG-13 films with smoking versus 19 smoke-free PG-13 films. In 2017, 7 PG-13 films with smoking were nominated. That's twice as many as in 2015 or 2016. So what are the odds that Oscar would favor PG-13 movies with smoking over smoke-free PG-13 films? Let's find out. On this slide, we show on the left the percentage of Oscar-listed PG-13 films that show smoking. On the right, you see what percentage of all top-grossing PG-13 films showed smoking. As we already know, 70% of the Oscar-listed PG-13 films showed smoking, and 30% were smoke-free this year. But for the general run of 2016 PG-13 films, the results are just the opposite. Those movies were 68% smoke-free and 32% smoking. Oscar-nominated films are not representative of all films. Most are nominated because they're extraordinary in some way, and because their studios campaigned hard to get them Oscar nominations. But this stark contrast is extraordinary too. One last table before we wrap this up. This table shows the 15 highest exposure films, that is, movies that delivered the most tobacco impressions to theater audiences in 2016. 6 of these movies are rated PG-13, and half of those films highlighted here are being hyped at the Oscars. All 6 PG-13 movies with smoking are from major studios. Each of those studios have policies on the books concerning tobacco in their kid-rated films. We need the R rating for future films with tobacco because obviously those individual company policies are just not working. So to conclude, here are our main conclusions from looking at Oscars and tobacco in 2017. Number 1. PG-13 films with smoking are overrepresented in Oscar lists. Number 2. Top actors may not smoke on screen, but actors with less leverage are still directed to smoke. Number 3. Oscar hype is designed by studios to promote sales, including their PG-13 films with smoking. There were positive lessons too. Hidden Figures, a PG-13 period piece, and Manchester by the Sea, an R-rated film of working-class grief, both avoided smoking cliches. Good movies don't need to smoke. The smoking in these movies wasn't missed by anyone. So, what are the main messages that the movie studios need to hear? 15 years after the studios first learned that smoking on screen harms young viewers. 5 years after the U.S. Surgeon General officially concluded that movies with smoking cause kids to smoke. 4 years after the CDC concluded that 1 million children's lives are at stake from movie smoking. It's time to stop hyping PG-13 movies with smoking. It's time to make kid-rated movies safe for kids. Smoke-Free Movies wants to make it as easy as possible for you to add smoke-free movie messages to your communications channels, especially in the time period leading up to the Oscars on February 26th. We've posted an Oscars and Tobacco info pack on UCSF's Box in the Cloud. This can help you communicate with your members about smoking in movies and counter the Oscar fantasy with some public health fact. The major studios especially need to hear how kids, parents, and health professionals feel about smoking in PG-13 movies. To download your Oscars and Tobacco info pack, go to this short URL, bit.ly 2017 Oscars Tobacco. You don't need a password, you don't need to register, and you can share this link with anyone. If you'd like to receive relevant email alerts about smoke-free movies, please email Stan Glantz at the address on your screen. And as always, for the latest about smoking on screen, visit smokefreemovies.ucsf.edu. Thanks so much for joining us today, and enjoy the Oscars on Sunday, February 26th.